share, and let's start that. To be fair, I have so many content, so I would like to chat with you. I would be happy, but so many things I want to show you. So let's get started. Hello. Thanks that you allow me to speak here. That's my pleasure, and especially I like Barcelona, and I'm missing that. I haven't been there for a few years. So hopefully someday. In the next 45 minutes, I'm gonna talk about Azure. Or Azure, how some people call that, or Azure. In the US, they call it Azure. So I'm going to talk about Azure and about how we can find different misconfigurations in Azure, like a typical misconfiguration I found when I work with my customers. So this session called Offensive Azure Security, so it means that I'm gonna show you how we can pen test Azure services around assessments and find out what may be not configured properly. I mean, from the security standpoint. My name is Sergey. I'm from Russia. Thanks, Christian, that you mentioned about that. And so let me say a few words about myself, and then I'm going to start my sessions right away. Start the content. So what I usually do, I work with companies that and around few companies, and I run pen tests for their customers, assessments, and after this, implement services to fix all of this, like the cloud, and quite often work with the cloud. Also, I'm an instructor, and I teach people cloud and security. I speak at different conferences. I was also speaking on Global Azure, Security B-Sides, some other B-Sides, Wild West Hack and Fast, DEF CON as well. So many conferences. If you want to contact me, so here's the LinkedIn. I don't have Twitter, to be fair, so LinkedIn, that's the best way to find me. I'm also Microsoft Azure MVP, which means that most valuable professional, OSCP or SAP, and many other certifications. I think it's not super important to talk about certifications since we don't have a lot of time. Let me, without being said, start the actual content. One last thing I want to say. I don't like slides, so you will not see many slides in this session. Most of the time, you will see live demos. So I hope you love live demos like I do. So let's get started. And the next slide, that's my agenda. You may say, what? This three shapes, that's agenda. Yeah. So in my session, what I want to do, I want to show three primary things. First of all, I want to compromise three environments. So first of all, I will compromise hybrid Active Directory. So when we have on-prem ID and integrate it into the cloud, so how we can try to compromise that environment? What typical misconfigurations may be found there, or what usually we find when we work with our customers? Then I'm going to show you how we can pen test and find out something in virtual machines. So when companies, they use virtual machines to run their applications, what we can find in virtual machines. And finally, the largest scenario, so that's the largest shape. So web applications. So when we don't, in the third scenario, we don't use virtual machines anymore. We are using PaaS services. So web app, SQL database in Azure. So we use Azure native services. We don't use virtual machines anymore. So what we can do there from security standpoint, of course. So that's my agenda, and let's get started. So first scenario, I have on-prem Active Directory and Azure AD Connect, which is a very well-known tool to synchronize your identities from on-prem to the cloud. Let's take a look what we can do there, and let me jump to demo. So I don't know if you work with AD Connect or not. Quite often I speak at Microsoft conferences, and many people that are there, they know it pretty well. But here it's that's security conference. I don't know if you have experience with this tool or not. But this one is quite well known. So with Azure AD Connect, we synchronize identities from on-premises to the cloud with this tool. What is interesting about this tool? Let me show you a few things first, and then again I will show you the problem. So when we configure AD Connect, one of the things we must do, we must create an account that will have access to on-premises first, because AD Connect must have credentials to read user names, to read groups, and so on. So read properties from Active Directory. So some sort of account must be associated with AD Connect. So this account will be created during the installation. And the most recommended option is to allow AD Connect create account for you. So in this case, nobody will know password. So the first option is recommended. You just need to enter enterprise admin credentials once. So the account will not have enterprise admin credentials in the future. Let me show you this account, how it looks like. I'm going to jump back to the main controller. And here is MSOL underscore and different numbers. Maybe in your case, it will be different. In my case, 9cc04 and so on. So if I look at this account, go to membership, where's that? Member off. So it's just a domain user. So it's not an enterprise admin or domain admin, just a regular user. So probably this account is not dangerous, right? I mean, it cannot do anything. But let me jump back to slides and tell you one more thing. So in a typical installation of AD Connect, Microsoft recommends, and not only Microsoft, but almost everyone recommends, to enable a feature called password hash sync. So password hash sync means that users and their passwords, of course not passwords, but hashes, will be synchronized from on-premises to the cloud as well. So in that case, cloud will be independent from on-premises. And if you lose connectivity, so users will be able to log in. Also, you will have detection of lead credentials. So many benefits from password hash sync. It's highly recommended feature. At the same time, if you enable that, account will have extra permissions like this. So in that case, account, I showed you before, will have those permissions: replicate directory changes and replicate directory changes all. Maybe you know how to use those permissions. I will show you that slightly later. Let me quickly show you about those permissions first. I'm going to go to properties of my domain, go to security, find out MSL, and here are permissions. So they are automatically configured because I enabled that password hash sync feature. All right, now, first of all, maybe you already know how to use those permissions. I will show you that slightly later, but we have the first dilemma. We know that we have an account. So let's say we want to compromise that account and we want to use those permissions. We know that we have this account, but we don't know the password, because when we made installation, AD Connect manage account itself. So you will not know the password. So let's go back to AD Connect. And probably if AD Connect manage the password, AD Connect must know the password. So where this password is stored? If I go to program files and find AD Microsoft Azure AD Sync folder, here is database. So password will be stored in this database. Let me just connect the database using SQL Management Studio. And look at the table called Management Agent and select top 1000. So let me also remove number of columns I don't need. So just to make it more simple, let me leave just those columns. That's enough. Let's execute, expand that. And let's take a look. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. So here's the account. A username, and it says password, but password is encrypted. Wow. So password is there, but password is encrypted. So it's not that easy. It's not just, I can't just take password in the plain text. But who can decrypt the password? Because it must be decrypted to be used, must be decrypted. And now the first problem I commonly see in customer environment. Let me show this real quick. So local administrator of this server, so member of administrators group, can decrypt the password. By the way, also member of AD Sync admins also can decrypt this password. I will, in the end of the session, I'll quickly talk about mitigations. But the problem that we usually see is like companies allow regular administrators like server admins, sometimes even help desk administrators, allow administration of AD Connect because AD Connect is not the main controller. Let me show you what may be the problem here. So let me open PowerShell and let's extract the password. You might do it manually, but it's quite tedious and takes a while. But there is a script you may find on the GitHub called AD Connect dump. So let me run the script. And look at this. So there's a username and there's a crazy password here as well. So I'm gonna open another machine called client. Let me open that as administrator command prompt here. Come on. And at the same time, I'm gonna open CMD again as a different user. And I'm gonna type this crazy password and username MSOL_. So let's first check who am I in the first command prompt. I'm a user JDOM. Let's check if I have permissions to access the main controller. No, I don't. Access denied. All right, so let's wait before the second CMD appears because it takes some time on using this account. It's usually around 30 seconds, 40, 30. Come on, I don't have time. Thank you. So who am I? MSOL_. So let's check also access denied, so I cannot log it. I cannot enumerate the C drive for the main controller. So it looks like I don't have permissions to list the main controller C drive, but what I can do. So let me go back to the slide. Once again, I have permission to replicate directory changes. So maybe you know what it means. If you're using Mimikatz or some tools like this, you may replicate information about any user in Active Directory, including the main administrator. So if I go back and open Mimikatz, don't ask me why it's running because, yeah, of course, it's exclusion of antivirus, but I have a separate session about antivirus evasion. It's possible to obfuscate Mimikatz. It's not a topic here. So I'm going to run a command called dcsync, and I want to find hash of user trainer, who is the main administrator. Let's run that, and that's working. Look at this, NTLM hash of the main administrator. Now, if I open Mimikatz again on a different command prompt as local admin and run command, very well known, pass the hash, probably in a security conference, everyone knows what is that, or most of you knows. And let's check the last time if I have access to the main controller. Yay, I do. So I became the main administrator just because I had permissions to administer AD Connect. So I think you know what to do here. Don't provide permissions to access the main controller. The main controller AD Connect to middle level admin. But that's the first scenario. So we here compromised Active Directory using AD Connect. And now the next target will be virtual machines in Azure. So for this purpose, I deployed application on virtual machines, Jenkins. To be fair, it's not really important which application I deployed, just for the example. The main idea here, I have one Linux machine and one Windows machine. And now my goal is to compromise that to virtual machines. Let me go back to demo, and somehow I must connect to virtual machines from my current state. So now currently I'm a domain administrator. If I'm a domain administrator, probably I can connect to any workstation on the network, right? So domain administrators usually they don't have many restrictions, of course. Even if they do, they may disable those restrictions right away. So if I'm a domain administrator, let's say I'm connected to workstation of Azure admin or Azure developer. Let me open CMD here. And let's type something like AZVM list and output as a table. So I want to just list virtual machines. And I can see here there's a number of virtual machines, and some of them I'm using for this demo as well. And my target is Jenkins master and Jenkins slave. Now, let's do the same on a different CMD, on a different command prompt. Let's do it again here. This time it should fail. So please cross your fingers, it must fail. Yeah, that's fail. It failed. So why? I open CMD on one machine, it works fine. And I open CMD on another machine, and it doesn't work. And it says I must log in first. The reason is because after login, after I type AZ login for the first time, the token will be cached in user profile. So look at this. There's a folder called .azure, and so that's the folder where token of this user will be cached. So access token and the refresh token, that usually a refresh access token, will be cached here. Access token expires in 1 hour, but the refresh token, that lives for a long time. So what if I take this token? I already zipped that in archive. So what if I take this token? You can just zip everything here in this folder, or some of the separate files like access token and profile. But I took all of them. So if I zip this Azure folder and copy this content to a different machine, paste here and extract. All right, now I have the same profile and with this token, which was cached, and fingers crossed, now it should work here without any AZ login. Come on, yay! So now I can run commands. So I have some sort of command prompt in the cloud. So let me jump this time to the portal, Azure portal, and let me show you real quick that we have here few virtual machines, and here are machines: Jenkins master, Jenkins slave. So let's say I want to log into those machines. I want to explore the operating system, file system, and so on. So if I want to log into Jenkins master, for example, I must click connect, RDP, or I might just take this IP address. So let's say MSTC, and it asks me for password. And the same will be with Linux, of course. So I don't know the password. So I want to log into the machine, but I don't know the password. Is it possible to do? Yes, if you have permissions to run command. So there's a feature in Azure. So you may run command inside of operating system without login to the machine. And so what I can do, I can run the command I want. On Windows, I can run PowerShell script. On Linux, it will be Bash script, of course, shell script. I can run command here. So now let me jump back to this machine. And now what I want to do, I want to run my first command. Oh, before that, sorry. I want to establish my netcat listener. And here as well, a different port. And now let's try to run this command. What this command is all about, that's a shell. So if everything will be fine, hopefully, then I will get a shell to Linux. And let's try the same for Windows. So let's try Windows. And let's try Windows as well. Now let's take a look. Fingers crossed, should give me a shell. It takes, so those commands do not run immediately, so it might take some time. I hope it will not take super long because I don't really have time to wait here. But anyway, so I think, let me just, succeed, shell script, bad, oh, damn it, that was bad character. All right, this one, bad character, will be, maybe Windows will be better. Oh yeah, I have a shell in Windows at least. So let's say, who am I? And I'm a local system. And by the way, Windows is my master node. So let's try to check if we have access. So let's see, let's go to my master node. Let's copy this. Jenkins has port 8080. Let's see if it will be available. So, and one more thing that I want to do, I want to check error log. because in error log, I may find sometimes password, initial password. Oh, look at this. So that is initial password of Jenkins. Let's see if I can, oh, looks like it doesn't want to connect from outside because I didn't configure Jenkins for. I just installed that, but I didn't say set up the password. Looks like that's the reason. Anyway, so I found that's what my goal was, to just get into virtual machine. I don't really care if I can log into Jenkins or not, but I have access to virtual machine. Now, let's go back to slides. And so we here compromised Windows and Linux machines. Not Linux, to be fair. In a script, I use the wrong command, so looks like it doesn't accept on this modern Linux machine. I just need to have to use the different reverse shell. But anyway, so in a similar manner, we can run that on Linux. All right, so now let's start the third module, not a module, but third scenario, where we're going to have more complex infrastructure. So now we have web application with backend in SQL database. And of course, when application connects to SQL, it must have credentials, right? So it must connect to SQL, it must be authenticated request. And so credentials should not be stored locally on web application. So that's a very bad practice. I'm storing credentials in Key Vault. And also I rotate those credentials. So periodically, it changed the credentials in Key Vault and change credentials in SQL database as well. Now let's take a look how we can do that. How we can test this environment. What misconfigurations possibly may exist in this environment. So I'm going to start from. Oh, let me first show you credentials that they exist. I'm going to switch to my portal, and let's go to Key Vault. And here's my Key Vault. Let me show you that I should not have access to credentials. Yeah, so look at this. So you don't have permissions to list. Now, let me just go to access policies. Very quickly, I'm going to give myself permissions just to show you that those credentials exist. Let's say list is enough. And let's say I want to give permissions to myself. Let's find my, all right, let's just find my add, save, go back to secrets. And so username and password are there. I cannot, I just gave myself only list, so I cannot get actual secret. But you can see here, there are two secrets, username and password in Key Vault. And so they will not be stored on the web application locally. They will be retrieved from Key Vault. Now let me just remove permission from that. Now let's go back. So where the problem exists in my environment, I don't want to say it's commonly used. I don't want to say I see that often, but I saw that one or two times. So when companies use credential rotation, it's recommended by Microsoft as well. So how it looks like? So there is a special function application, which will automatically rotate based on some events. Based on triggers, credentials here and here in the target as well. So the secret in the Key Vault will be changed, and the password in SQL will be updated as well. So that's the rotation. The problem is function application has permissions to modify Key Vault and of course extract data from Key Vault. And if function application doesn't have appropriate configuration. So for example, I saw that. So Key Vault configured securely using access policy in Key Vault, but function application has a bit more permissions. So people that manage function app, they have some permissions on function application. So my entry point may become function application. If I can modify this function, I can extract data from Key Vault. So let me jump back to demo. Let me show you quickly function. And then I'm going to start to my modification. So let's find function up. So here's the AKV rotation. And so let's go to deployment center, I guess. The deployment center will be used slightly later. Let me first show you functions. So I have two functions here. One that I want to show you is triggered by HTTPS request. Let me click on this function. By the way, that's a function from Microsoft, so you may find it on the GitHub. Now let me show you the code. So this function based on PowerShell, so let me show the original one. So that's the original function based on PowerShell. And what I want to do, I want to add my own function here, my own code. And so I already did that. I will show you how I did that. And so this code should extract data from Key Vault. Let me show you how we can modify this function. One of the default configurations and functions is access through FTP. So if you go to configuration, come on. And in configuration, if I go to general, so FTP state all allowed is just by default. It's default configuration. I didn't change that. And so if I have permissions to access this function, I mean, to read this function, I can get FTP credentials. And so they are here. So I can click show here and you will see the username and password. I don't have really interface access. Oh, by the way, let me break those shells. I don't have access. I'll jump to this one. I don't have access to interface. So let me do it from command prompt. So let's say, first of all, I want to find URL to this function application. So that's the URL. Let me copy that and paste into FileZilla. Then I want to get credentials. So let's do that. And here is username. And here is password as well. All right, let's connect. Okay. And look at this. So here's my function. And let me go there. And I just add another script with this name. So so the script with name run.ps1 will run automatically. So I renamed the original one to run1, and I place my own script here. Now, I just need to run my function using HTTP trigger, and that should work. By the way, it's hard to predict for how long this function will work. Usually it takes 30, 40, 60 seconds, but a few times it took much longer. So fingers crossed it will work. I mean, it will show me the result here. If not, I know password anyway, but so here's just a request to this, trying to trigger this function. So my script will do everything for me. I'm just send the, oh, look at username. Oh, look at this. So username is web app and password is passport. All right, now I want to connect to SQL with those credentials. So first of all, let me try to connect to SQL from here. Let's say connect, and from here as well. Let's click connect. So the first machine I'm trying to use is web app password is my on-prem machine. And look at this. It says connect to database. Oh no, that's a different error. Let me double check. What the hell is that? What the hell is going on with my database? Online, that's fine. Interesting. Let me copy this address just in case. Should be fine. Can I connect to database? Could not resolve user realm. Azure AD. Oh, sorry, that's a SQL authentication. My bad. All right, so now it says, hey, firewall does not allow you to connect. So even if you know username and password, firewall will not allow you to connect because we have firewall just by default in Azure. So let me click on this firewall. And by default, firewall configured very properly. So firewall will not allow you to connect at all. So you must configure your firewall. And that's the most, that's what I see almost every time, very, very often. So there's a configuration that says, allow Azure services and resources to access this server. And many companies enable this. So it means like Azure services, they should have access to this SQL server. Let me check that. And let's say, let me type password, click connect. And yeah, I can connect to this SQL server. But one of the problems with this configuration, and it's not really described here on the portal because it says connection from API specified below provide access to all databases. The problem is it will not be your services. So many people think like, oh, it's my subscription. So services from my Azure subscription, they will be able to connect. No. It means that any service, any IP address, not service, any IP address belongs to Azure will be able to connect. So if I live in a different country and around a different company, so but I have virtual machine in Azure, I will be able to connect. Of course, I must use username and password, but firewall will not stop me. So that's not the most secure configuration. So let me disable that. And so let me enable what is more recommended from security standpoint, deny public access, public network access. So that means now access will be provided only internally. So my resources in Azure connected to virtual network in the cloud will be able to connect, but not any services that use public endpoints. Now let's try to connect again from my Azure machine. So let's say disconnect. Click connect again, use password. Oops, doesn't work. And it says deny public access network is set to yes. All right, so now what I can do with that, if I'm a pen tester, if I'm an attacker, what I can do with that. So let me check. Maybe I have permissions to access web application. So web application has access to backend database, right? So front end has access to backend. Somehow directly or indirectly. Of course, ideally the front end doesn't have permissions to access SQL backend directly, and there's must be another tier between them. But in my case, I have web tier here, web app and backend, and no middle tiers. So this one should have access. Now let's try to jump to web app to jump back to portal. Now let's see what web application I have. Come on. Yeah, that's just a regular application, very simple with simple registration form. Let me register real quick. Let's say BSidesBCN. That's going to be my name, and the email will be BSidesBCN whatever.com. So let me click submit, and you're registered. Well done. Good. Now, let's try to get into the database using this web application. I'm going to jump back to my demo. And now let me clear the screen. And so web application has the same issue as functions. They have FTP access allowed. And so I can repeat the same steps. Absolutely. So I have FTP URL. Let's just create a new tab. And let's take credentials as well. Good. And this password as well. Connect. Yes. And look at this. I already put some files there. So here's my application, one pager. And so if I have access to FTP to this file system, what I can do, I can upload my own PHP file. I can see it's PHP. So let me upload my own PHP called myshell.php. And now let's try to navigate to this myshell.php. Yay! I have access to, I have a shell, web shell. Yeah, of course, web shell is not the best shell in the world. So let me establish the normal netcat shell. Whoa, that's the wrong one. Sorry, that's the wrong command. This one. And now I have netcat shell. All right, so let's see, who am I? Who am I? And I'm data. I'm definitely not root. I don't ID. I'm not root. So if I want to access database, I need to have some tools. But if I want to access from command prompt, I need some tools. And tools I must install them, but I don't have permissions to install. So let me go back to my FTP. And what I'm using is a special tool called usequel. So this tool may connect the database without, so it's a tool to connect the SQL database without installation. So let's connect using this usequel. And it looks like I connected. Let's try to list tables. And I can see the registration TBL. All right, let's try to get a table content. And look at this, BSidesBCN, whatever. So I can see this table. All right, so that, and break that. And so that is my web application and SQL backend as well compromised. So now we have the last piece here, and I think I have 7 minutes. And for Q&A, can you advise me if I have any questions? So do you have questions? Should I reserve time for Q&A? So I didn't hear you, but anyway. So last piece we have here, application gateway. So it's an application firewall that does not allow me to get into the web app from outside. So I just quickly want to show you that if I protect with WAF, let's try to run SQL injection. Sorry, where's my injection? Here we go. So it was error-based injection, so I can see that like a path to my PHP file. I can see the information about database. So it reveals some information, driver and so on. So it's exception. Now, what I want to do, I want to show you one last thing. If I try, I have another application. And this application will be protected by WAF. Let me open that quickly. Application gateway. Here's the IP address. And if I try to run injection, or 1 equals 1. Whoops, access denied. Doesn't allow me to do it. If I try some other way, other things like null bytes, or cross-site scripting, whatever. So let's say script. Sorry, my bad. Script doesn't work either, and so on. I can try many things. And what I did, I used WAF Ninja, which is fuzzer, and just check all of that. And look at this on the right. So all attempts to bypass the firewall, they are blocked. All right, so let me jump back to slides. Now, I hope that that demo and that session was informative and gave you some ideas what you can do to fix, to protect your Azure environment better. So first of all, if we have first scenario, here it's very important that AD Connect must be managed by the admin administrator. Do not allow middle-level administrators admin access to AD Connect. You may have problems with that. If we're talking about virtual machines, here we need, so there's no way to stop this execution of those commands, but you may not allow permission. We may not give permissions to run those commands. So be careful with permissions that you provide to users, because some people may do something like this. And the last scenario, here I can give you many advices. First of all, if you are using credential rotation, try to keep permissions to this similar to Key Vault, because if permissions are different, then someone may use this one to access Key Vault, and then you will be able to compromise actual database. And of course, database should, if possible, have only private access, and web application should be protected with web application firewall as well. And also the last thing, disable FTP. So who needs FTP nowadays? We use DevOps process, continuous deployment process. We don't use FTP, to be fair, but it's allowed by default. Disable that. Don't forget to disable that. All right, so and that's the last slide where I can handle questions. So first of all, thank you very much for your participation. I hope that demo was informative and you spent your time here with me, and that was not in vain. And now I'm ready. I have two minutes to handle your question. Maybe I will get some extra time if I have many questions.
So thank you, Sergey. That was very interesting. And I have to say, you're a brave person going and doing a full presentation basically on full demo. That is brave. So
thank you.
There are no questions on the Q&A, but I do have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
One was about the run script. If I understand correctly, the run script cannot be disabled. You can only like change permissions to allow people to run it or not, but it cannot be disabled altogether.
Yeah, that's the built-in feature in Azure. So the idea is, so the concept of the cloud, like do not log into machines to administer them. So do it somehow differently. So do not log into each machine to administer. But if you need to administer, just use the portal or some other ways without logging to the machines. So yeah, that's the built-in feature, and it can't be disabled. So run command will be with you. The only thing you can do is not allow other people to run commands, but you can disable this feature completely from Azure. So that's built in.
Right. And my other question was about configuration of the stuff, because like, as you mentioned, like some of this stuff is basically misconfigurations. I'm sorry about my cat is mewing in the background. Is there any way to control configurations globally? Like for instance, I don't want to go on every single web application and disable FTP. I would like to have like globally FTP is disabled when you create an application.
So in that case, we have what's called templates. So in the cloud, we don't deploy, hopefully we don't deploy anything manually. So we should have approved template, approved configuration that we are using for deployment. So in the cloud, that's like ARM template. We use Terraform for that. So there's a number of ways to deploy. So Terraform is like, maybe you may deploy in AWS and in Azure at the same time. So ARM templates more specific to Azure. So yeah, use templates. You create approved configuration, and then you deploy from that template, and you do not deploy it manually. And each time, do not reconfigure it, because yeah, if you have to do it every time, you will forget it. Someday you will forget to disable FTP or enable some other security features. So templates, approved templates, use only them for deployment.
Cool. So that's great. And also one kind of a follow-up question is I do have more experience with AWS. I don't have a lot of experience with Azure. And in AWS, there is a service called AWS Config, which is something that if you are familiar with it, you kind of create rules that would alert you or do something when something happens, right? So it could mean, like, for instance, you configure the template to not allow FTP, but someone goes and enable that afterwards, right? So the template is not enough. Maybe you want to also know or even execute something automatically, like disable the FTP as soon as it is enabled. Is that a similar service?
Yeah, in Azure, it's called policy. So it's not the same as config, as AWS config, but it may do similar things. So you may create like a policy and say, so this is so deployment in that subscription must be done only with that configuration. So you can't deploy, for example, Ubuntu 16.04 because it's obsolete. So you may only deploy Ubuntu 20.4 because now it's an approved image. And so that's called a policy. And also policy may not only deny to do something, but also policy may monitor and say, okay, so that configuration, it is not something that we want to see. and it will report about this. So yeah, that's called Azure policy. And so if you just open our Azure portal and find policy, you will find number of built-in templates, so faculty definitions, and policy. And here's the long list of built-in things. So for example, here's my custom policy, only allows certain VM platform image. So audit virtual, here's the other built-in policy that audit virtual machines without disaster recovery configured, and so on. So yes, we can do something like this in Azure as well. And we can combine, by the way, policy with deployment template in a special service called Blueprint, where we can deploy policy and the resources together. So you deploy your resource and deploy policy on top of that.
Cool. Thank you very much. So those were all my questions and the note Q&A, and that's all the time we had. Thank you very much for your talk. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Stay safe, and hope to see you next time, hopefully in Barcelona.
Okay.
Bye-bye.